Hey everyone, Ashley here, and today I'm going to be talking about sewing on patches. As you see, I have a bag that I use a lot, and I've got some patches on here. They give my bag a little bit more personality. So whether you're wanting to add patches to clothing or accessories, it's really simple. It just takes a little bit of time, and all you really need is whatever you're wanting to sew on. So this is a patch. It has a sticky back to it, but you don't have to have that because we're going to sew it, and a hand sewing needle and some thread. So go ahead and grab your materials and meet me back here. So to get started, I went ahead and cut a piece of thread about 20 inches long, and we're going to double this up. So I just went ahead and aligned the two ends together so that the thread is split into half when we are sewing. And it's going to be a shorter amount of thread we're working with at one time, but it's going to be a little bit stronger than if it were just one thread by itself. So to tie a knot in the end, it's pretty simple. So we have our thread in one finger and then the other ends of the thread in our other. Cross these over. So imagine like a circle. We've created a little circle, and then we're going to wind the thread over the needle a few times. You could do it about 5 or 6 times. And then kind of hold the wraps a little tightly and then just pull them down. And that is a knot to get you started. Okay, so we have our thread ready to go, and as you'll notice, I have a white background on this patch, so I'm going to use thread that matches it. So if your thread gets a little messy or your stitches are messy, you don't really notice it as much. So thinking about where we're going to put our patch. As you can see, I have a few on here already. There's just some embroidery that's already on the bag. And this is an example of how you would want to secure your patch before you start to sew. You can use straight pins or safety pins. These are basically just going to hold this in place so that you can stitch without having to worry about keeping the patch exactly where you want it. Keep in mind, if you're going to be stitching on pockets or the inside of the bag, you want to make sure that you're just getting the inside of this pocket, and you're not going to be sewing both of these layers together. So be mindful of that. Alright, now we are ready to get started. So we're going to take our needle and thread. Keep in mind, this is not going to do the whole circle of the perimeter of this patch, but it's going to get us started. I prefer to work with smaller lengths of thread instead of working with really long ones and then getting them caught on things and having knots. So I'm going to rotate this to where it's easy to get to. So see, I can move my hand in and out pretty easily here. And this is also a good step when you're sewing patches if you want to use a thimble. This is exactly what these are for. So we're going to start from the back side, and just to get an idea of where your needle is, you can kind of poke it through and see like, oh, okay, I'm close, but I'm not quite there yet. So I just need to move over a little bit closer, and we're here. I'm also going to be trying to stay within the white boundary around. And it's okay if you go off a little. No one will really notice. So pull it up. Now we're taut with the knot in the fabric, and we're going to start stitching. So be careful not to poke yourself on the inside when you poke that needle down, and we're just going to go back and forth stitching from inside to outside and then pulling it all the way out, then going back to the inside again, and continue all the way around. Woohoo! I think we're finished. So I'm going to poke this back through, and let's check on our stitches. Oh yeah, we are ready. So again, they don't have to be perfect. No one's really going to be looking at this side of the fabric. And to finish, I'm just going to be sewing in the same place again a few times, just to add some tension here and stability so that the thread doesn't just come out on its own. Alright, that's it. You trim this as far as you need to, and ta-da! New patch for my bag. Oh yeah.
Hey everybody, I'm Keach Rainwater. I'm your guest mentor today for Studio NPL, and we're going to talk a little bit today about sound, and specifically sound for video, because I think that 50% of the quality of a video is the sound. Because if you're watching a video and it has bad sound, nobody wants to watch that video. You're just going to lose your audience. And so I think it's really important to have really good quality sound going into your video, whether it's music or dialogue, people talking, or sound effects or anything like that. I think it's real important that the sound be really, really nice. Now it's really hard to get good sound on a video. It takes practice and it takes a lot of trial and error and a little bit of skill. So today we're going to try to break it down into just a few different ways of thinking about it. One of the ways that you can get sound, that's probably one of the most easy ways, is called single system sound. And that's where, like I'm doing right now, I have this lapel mic on here and it's picking my sound up and it's coming through this Zoom recorder, which is a digital recorder right here. And then I'm just coming out of the headphone jack right over into my camera. So I don't have to worry about syncing anything up or anything. It's just going straight into the camera. Now the problem with that is you have to make sure that the sound going into the camera isn't distorted. Distorted is where if I had the headphone jack up really, really high on this recorder, or the microphone was too hot, too loud and going into the camera, and it distorts. It sounds like it's like just like breaking up, and it's really terrible. The way to combat that is to have a good set of headphones. When you're behind the camera, you have some headphones on to be able to hear it, and also make sure that you look at the meters on the camera to see that they are not in the red. You don't want them to be in the red. So there's several different ways to do it. That's single system sound. Now, double system sound is where you have two separate entities. You have a sound like this Zoom recorder, let's say, with a chip inside, a memory card, and then you're hitting record on that, and you're also recording video separately. And you would have something, in a lot of cases, you can have something professional like this, this slate right here, which is a digital slate that you really, all we would be using it for if we were doing that is just for the sound and the look of this, like that. So, which you can easily do it with just somebody clapping. And what I like to do a lot of times is just before I start, if I'm doing double system sound, is just to go 3, 2, 1, and maybe a little audible thing about what it is, so you know what you're listening to on the recorder, what it matches with the visual. So yeah, so the lapel mic is basically what I'm using here. Is this a long, about a 20-foot long, thin little cable that usually goes up your shirt, usually up the actor's shirt or whoever's going to be in front of the camera, and then it clips onto here, and you got to make sure that it's sort of pointing up at their face and you get good quality sound. That's probably the best way to mic somebody and you get the best quality. Another way is what's called a shotgun mic, which is this right here. If you don't have one of these, or you don't want to have a wire trailing everywhere you go, and you're sort of, the talent is just walking around, you want to pick up the sound from behind the camera, you got to make sure that this shotgun mic is pointing straight at the person talking, and as close as you can get it to the people talking without being in frame where you see it in the camera. And that's tricky sometimes. You got to kind of practice ahead of time and make sure that this isn't, you're not seeing this in the edge of the frame, and get it just far away enough to where it's not in the frame, but it's close enough to the talent where it's going to pick up their voice. And again, not distorted. You want to make sure that the sound going in, so you almost have to have an extra person to make sure that the sound is going in there nice and clear. So yeah, that's my little tutorial on getting good sound. Here's another thing you can use. This is a wireless pack. I use this sometimes, but it's not the best system in that sometimes you pick up interference. You know, the person will be talking and you'll hear a little bit of a or something like that. So it's not ideal. It's useful, but it's not ideal. I like to either use a shotgun mic or this lapel mic if the person's going to be sitting still like this. But once again, you got to get really good crisp sound, and you got to make sure that it's loud enough to the people can hear it, and not distorted and not just nasty sounding when your final product is done and you're editing. So this is Keach Rainwater, your guest mentor at Studio NPL. If you have any questions, be sure and submit your questions to studio.npl@gmail.com, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Hey everybody, it's me, Frank, again. We are looking at another tutorial today from the Design a Comic Book Learning Path on lynda.com. Again, you can find Lynda on the library website, library.nashville.org. Go to the databases page and you should find lynda.com. You can log in with your library card number and your PIN. And then again, the learning path is called Design a Comic Book. Today we're looking at the course called Penciling a Comic Book Page. The first section is called Starting with the Script. Here he talks a lot about locating important actions in the script to turn into panels. He also talks about how to consolidate these panels and how to determine the number of panels per page. The second group of videos is called Panel Development. Here he talks about creating a cheat sheet for each page, briefly describing the action in each panel. The point of this is to figure out how you want to show each action in each panel. And he emphasizes the importance of being intentional about framing and distance. The third group of videos here is called Laying Out Pages. He talks about fitting your planned panels all together. And then he gets into refining your rough draft. And the final group of videos is an overview of the entire process from start to finish. You can see here in my planning stages, I made a rough script and mapped out what I wanted to happen in each panel. And then I did a sketch of how I wanted the page to be laid out. And I like to keep it somewhat regular with this sort of 9-panel page. And then when I start out, I start with the boxes, trying to keep them as consistent as possible. I didn't use a ruler, but I measure them out in my own way to make sure that they're all of equal or consistent size. And then I go through and basically try to keep it like my sketch, my first draft, but refine it, try to make it a little cleaner, and then of course add the text. And here is the pencil draft that I came up with of my one-page comic.
This is Miss Magda from the Bordeaux Branch Library again. So today we're going to continue our conversation about poetry and beats. I'm sure you have all experienced that moment when you're listening to something and then all of a sudden your leg or your head or your hand starts moving to the rhythm, and it makes sense because our heartbeats are constantly looking for their twin in the rhythms of the world. Of course, not every noise has a beat. I mean, fireworks, birdsong, applause. Sometimes those sounds can seem dissonant and disturbing, like an off note. On the other hand, there's something comforting about the sound of a clock or someone walking or windshield wipers even. So many poets, from Shakespeare to your favorite rappers like Wu-Tang Clan and Mos Def, they know the value of rhythm. And I mentioned our old friend William Shakespeare. He used iambic pentameter a lot in his plays and in all of his sonnets. So do you remember how haiku had particular rules? There were the 3 lines consisting of 17 syllables divided up into 5, 7, 5, right? You remember this conversation? Well, iambic pentameter, which is what William Shakespeare used, is a rhythm scheme in which each line consists of 10 syllables. Now, these syllables are then divided into 5 pairs, which are made up of 1 unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. And again, that rhythm sounds very similar to a heartbeat. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. Sonnet 12. When I do count the clock that tells the time. Sonnet 18. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. When an actor performs lines such as these, they can memorize them easier. And the audience finds them comforting. Their heartbeats are aligning with the rhythm of the words, just like when your head starts nodding to your favorite song. Now, I mentioned that many of our modern day performers have much in common with, old Will S. I'm not just talking about the rhythms. So, here are some lyrics, some lines of poetry. I want you to tell me who wrote them. Was it Tupac or was it Shakespeare? Here's number 1. Cowards die many times before their deaths. Who was it? Tupac or Shakespeare? Here's number 2. The solitary mind of a madman who screams in the dark. Evil lurks, enemies see me flee. Here's number 3. The plan to take command of the whole family, though underhanded, to be the man it was planned. Number 4, ambition should be made of sterner stuff. 5, I heard a rumor I died, murdered in cold blood, dramatized. 6, if music be the food of love, play on. 7, I'll teach you how to flow. And 8, misplaced hate makes disgrace to races. Okay, so while you're thinking about those, here are a couple more challenges. So first one, invite a friend or a family member to make a rhythm with you. You can do this through FaceTime or Zoom or whatever. Just please do it safely. Have each of you Number 1, cowards die many times before their deaths. That was Shakespeare. Number 2, the solitary mind of a madman who screams in the dark. Evil lurks, enemies see me flee. Tupac. 3, the plan to take command of the whole family, though underhanded, to be the man it was planned. Tupac. 4. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Shakespeare. 5. I heard a rumor I died, murdered in cold blood, dramatized. Tupac. 6. If music be the food of love, play on. Shakespeare. 7. I'll teach you how to flow. Shakespeare. And number 8. Misplaced hate makes disgrace to races. Tupac. So how'd you do? I do want to know. So comment below or email us. And I am Miss Magda, the teen librarian for the Bordeaux Bridge Library. Stay tuned for the next time from Studio NPL and the NPL universe.